So you're probably thinking about buying an RTX 4060, but you don't know, is it actually worth it? I mean, at the end of the day, it's still $300 to $400. And especially since all of TikTok is saying AMD is so much better, let's actually test it out in Fortnite. Now keep in mind guys, I'm gonna be testing this out with an optimal PC build, since we want to see how much maximum FPS we can actually squeeze out of this build. We have i9 13th gen, 48 gigs of DDR5 RAM with 7200 MHz, which is proven to be the most stable in Fortnite, and an insanely fast M.2 SSD. So therefore, this is the perfect build for any GPU at this point. And let's check out how good it actually runs in Fortnite Season 2. What I want to tell you in the first place is so that you already know if it's worth it or not. During mid-game sessions, you actually have around 400 to 500 FPS if there's nothing happening on your screen. This seems fine, right? Like this seems like insanely high and good FPS. But even while being in fights, guys, I can tell you, you can basically lock 360 Hz at least, which is insane for an entry RTX card from the latest generation. I mean, you gotta keep in mind, $300 is still a lot of money, but in comparison that there's like a 4080 or a 4090 which cost you 3 times the amount of money, I'll take that any day for locked 360 Hz gaming. Like no matter which competitive game you want to play out there right now with an RTX 4060, if it's Fortnite, Valorant, Counter-Strike, whatever, you're definitely gonna reach those 360 FPS at least. Now also keep in mind, the system which I tested it on is fully optimized, guys. We're running Atlas OS, I'm having less than 60 processors on my CPU actually. I have 48 gigs of RAM, which is the best way to actually run an i9 of the latest generations. So of course there are a lot of factors, but as I mentioned, we want to test this on a perfect build to actually see how much FPS we can squeeze out. And I mean, the background gameplay is speaking for itself. I'm just simply walking around a little bit, you know, in a solo game to test out, hey, how good is the performance? And we're getting most of the time around those 400 FPS, which is really nice since you always want to have a little bit higher FPS than the maximum refresh rate of your monitor. So therefore having around 400, 450 FPS is going to give me that slightly less input delay because we have additional extra pictures. Now, whether you want to play competitive, creative, or whatever, creative by the way is a joke on this setup, like easily over 1000 FPS. I don't even have to show this actually, but you guys know what I mean. And what I want to tell you is, if you're trying to build specifically a PC for Fortnite as of right now, I tested out the RX 6500 XT in my previous video, which is an AMD card, and it actually ran really well. Even with something like a Ryzen 7 5800X, I was getting most of the time as well locked over 300 FPS. So therefore this argument that AMD or Nvidia is better as of right now for Fortnite, I kind of have to say it depends on the GPU. AMD has a lot more issues when it comes down to drivers. Nvidia is a lot more stable. You have the low reflex latency modes and all of these, of course, yeah. But as of right now, from my own test, I can say AMD actually caught up pretty well. So therefore, it's up to you what you can kind of find cheaper on eBay, or if you're maybe looking locals, you know, or if you find like a good deal on the internet. Like if you find the equivalent GPU of AMD for around 300, 400 bucks, go for it as well. But what I'm trying to say is, if you have an RTX 4060 or you specifically want an Nvidia card, some would argue it's a little bit overpriced. Of course, yeah, you get better performance from AMD, but you have all of these extra Nvidia features which you simply don't get on AMD. And if that's something you aim for, RTX voice and all of these, you know, or maybe you're a content creator and you want an Nvidia GPU so that you can actually blur out the background without having to own a green screen. But definitely for RTX 4060, I could highly recommend you to get this GPU. Literally most of my main channel videos as of right now are still recorded on the 4060, even though I actually own a 4090. Of course, since I do a lot of FPS improvement guides, it doesn't make sense to do these on a 4090, you know, on the best hardware possible. And this 4060 is doing everything, even video renders, like no issues. Very good GPU if you get a good deal on it. And with that said, yeah, this is basically it. Don't forget to check out these 2 videos right now on screen as well.